We are going to use this structure using our comparative. I said that I am interested in adjectives and adverbs, but I'm going to be keener on adjectives. An example, we have an example as examples. When the test is simple, the test is simple, okay, the candidates will get very good marks, Now, children, a setter brings such a question and tells you rewrite using the. It is a very common structure. What do you do, my dear candidates? I usually tell candidates not to stress themselves or get worried that they don't know how to go about this. I usually introduce a method called the plotting method. The plotting method, you get somewhere on your paper, you do this. You are going to plot, and you know, how am I going to form my sentence? How am I going to form my structure? What I do is, the setter needs here a comparative. The setter needs there a comparative. Again, the setter needs here a comparative. The comparative are these ones that we have been looking at. So what we do, and still, this is how we should learn to plot. And here, there is a what? A verb. You get your pencil, you are going to plot. Ask yourself, when the test is simple, the candidates will get very good marks. Ask yourself, what leads to the other? What happens first, then the other thing also happens. So in this case here, we first see how we are saying when the test is simple, the candidates will get very good marks. The test will first be simple, that's when the candidates will get very good marks. So in this sense, candidates, we are going to look for an adjective here. We're going to look for an adjective here. On getting it, we are going to get its comparative. Our adjective is a word that describes a noun. Our noun is the test. What is describing the test? The word simple. The word simple is describing our test, so we get the comparative of simple. We plot it here with a pencil. Our comparative of simple is simpler, and we go to the next sentence. The candidate will get very good marks. What is being described? Marks are described with good, and comparative of good is better. We are plotting the interests of the setter. The interests of the setter, we have simpler, we have better. But the setter says he needs a verb here. So we say, when the test is simple, what is the verb from the first sentence? When the test is simple, what is the verb? The verb is this word, is. The simpler our verb is. We are plotting. Now, after plotting like that, we are going to go back and feed in these other words, because the setter's interests are these words that we have plotted. So we are going to say, the simpler the test is, the verb is here. The simpler the test is, the better what? The better marks the candidates will get. The simpler the test is, the better marks the candidates will get. We can get another example. If okay, let me do it like this. If your letters are very long, they will be very boring to the reader. They'll be very boring to the reader. We come back to our method of plotting. Let me know. I didn't time. Okay. How many?
4 minutes.
Oh my God. I'm going to do 7. If your letters are very long, they'll be very boring to the reader. So we start plotting. We do our plotting. The setter needs a comparative here, needs a comparative there, and a verb. So we identify what leads to the other. If your letters are very long, they'll be very boring to the reader. The letters first be boring. The letters are first boring, then are first long, then they are boring. So we look for the adjective here, which we could make a comparative. And our adjective, the one which describes our main noun letters, and say, the longer our verb is are. The longer our verb is are, comparative in the next, they'll be very boring to the reader. What is the comparative of boring? The comparative of boring is more boring. More boring. And we say, the longer your letters are, the more boring they will be to the reader. The longer your letters are, the more boring they will be to the reader. There is also one that I want us to look at very fast. If one reads a lot of books, he becomes very knowledgeable. Okay. Now, candidates, we are going to plot. We are going to plot using our method here of having a what? An adjective here, having a verb there, and the candidates. There is something I did highlight well here. A comma. This comma has to be there when you are plotting. Never forget that comma. It has to be there. So we start to remember to analyze. Don't just rush to answer without analyzing the question. First ask yourself, what will happen first? If one reads a lot of books, he becomes very knowledgeable. So we say here, the what? Our adjective here is a lot of. This a lot of, children or candidates, whenever you find it, your mind should go to the words many or much. The reason I dodge many and much in formal language, formal expressions, many and much are used in negative sentences. But for affirmative sentences, many and much instead take on the words a lot of. So a lot of stand for many and much. So when I'm getting the comparative of a lot of, I go to these two. I get their comparatives, which are comparative of many or much is more. And I plot here more, and our adjective here is knowledgeable, and comparative of knowledgeable is more knowledgeable. So we shall say the more books one reads. The more books one reads. Our verb is reads. Our verb is reads. The more books one reads, the more knowledgeable he becomes. Candidates, I know you have picked something, whether small or big, it's not a problem. If it is big, that's wonderful. If it's small, you can still get me on WhatsApp. My numbers are right there on your screen. You can still get me. I take you through the corrections such that you're on the same page with the others. So you're going to write the exercise that I'm going to give you. You write it, and I'll be able to guide you. Thank you for being very attentive. Stay home.